Today is September 14th, 2020, and this is our first Zoom Dharma class for the fall of this year. I'm speaking to you from Moonlit Crane Zendo, and I'm happy to see so many of you here. I see many people from New Brunswick and from other places in Ontario, so I'm very happy about that. I will be recording this class, and so maybe when it's posted, if the recording is half good, I will post it on our webpage and maybe more people can come and join us for the subsequent classes. The topic for today is, this is something that Alan came up with, and it's called Growing Awareness in Daily Life. I think he wanted me to talk about how mindfulness practice integrates within a wider scope of Zen practice. But I wanted to kind of take it a little bit back and become even more basic and talk about awareness, because awareness is the basic tool of Zen practice. In some ways we can say Zen is an art of awareness. Perhaps we can say that. And to start, I want to just very briefly touch upon, the class is largely going to be a bit of an overview. I'm just kind of touch upon a number of points. But the point of confusion maybe is, how does awareness relate to meditation practice and to mindfulness practice? And the point of confusion is that both mindfulness and meditation use awareness. So this is why sometimes there's a lot of confusion. And perhaps to explain this in detail would require a whole class on its own. So the only thing I really want to say is that meditation practice and mindfulness practice are two complementary practices. They're both equally important. And they work with awareness in a slightly different way, or we can say they develop at different dimensions of awareness. If I can give you an analogy, it would be maybe if you're cooking a meal, first you need to chop up vegetables, and then you need to put them together and stir and mix it together. So in this analogy, chopping up would be an example of mindfulness practice, and stirring it together and mixing it together and bringing it all together again, this is more like meditation practice. Another way that we can see the difference is they lead to development of different kinds of wisdom, and both we need. We need both of these two kinds of wisdom. And meditation practice specifically, we are developing a non-dual, non-conceptual wisdom, and with mindfulness practice we are developing a wisdom, what is called a wisdom of differentiation. And here differentiation basically means ability to tell good from the bad, ability to clearly, objectively differentiate things. And good and the bad are not some a priori good and the bad things, but namely the things which promote the cause of suffering, or the kind of things that promote the cause of awakening, loving kindness, the good things that we want to develop through our practice. So these are the two very important aspects. We can say, we call it wisdom, but what is wisdom? We can call it aspects of the mind that we need to develop. And so meditation, it has its place, it has its function, it is fundamental, and so is the mindfulness practice. These are two fundamental Buddhist practices. They work together, they support each other. So we just need, very briefly, I wanted to touch upon that and how it relates to awareness. But today I'm stepping back a little bit, and I just want to talk about awareness. And the starting point A place where I thought would be a good place to start to talk about awareness is us becoming, how do we become convinced that cultivating awareness is something that is actually helpful and beneficial for us. So this would be a good place to start. And then I thought, well, the more you try to convince people of something, the less we are convinced, or the less likely we are to be convinced of something. So it's really, I would like to leave that to you, to inquire and to ask yourself, why should I cultivate awareness in my life? What sort of things would it bring into my life? But the main point is to really become convinced that this is something worth doing. You yourself come up with the really good reasons why this is worth doing. I will try to give some, by the end of this talk, maybe I will answer this question. But the main point is not so much for you to be convinced by something I might say, but for you to use your own awareness and use your own ability to think clearly and to see and to use your own kind of inherent wisdom to convince yourself why awareness is something that is beneficial to us. The second point I wanted to make is that awareness is something that you already know and that you already have. This is not something that is out there that needs to be, you don't need to go and climb high into the mountains, into Himalayas or somewhere on some deep spiritual journey to find out what awareness is. Right now, you have it. Right now, you know what it is. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to know anything beyond what you already know right now. This is the basic point. You already know and you already have it. Whether we appreciate it, whether we know how to develop it, whether we are willing to work with it and to use it in a kind of as a way of practice, in a disciplined way of cultivation, that is another question. But there is no doubt that you already have it and you already know it. You know precisely what it is. So this is one thing that is worth touching upon. So the next point I thought about talking is that when we become aware of something, it is always something that is taking place in the present moment, and the effect is immediate. The effect of becoming aware of something is immediate. So it is not something for tomorrow, it is not something about yesterday, it has immediate effect. For example, if you're breathing in and you become aware that you're breathing in and you are consciously experiencing that in-breath, this is something that is immediate. You immediately know what breathing in is like. In essence, you're connected to your breath. So awareness, it's connecting us. In this case, the object is the breathing, so it's connecting you to your in-breath or to the out-breath. So this is something we already know. This is something we already have. This is something that is immediately effective. This is something that is connecting us to whatever it is the object of that awareness. So this is maybe a second or third point I wanted to make. So the next point, and everything that I'm saying, I hope that I'm not telling you anything new. Okay, certain things may be a little bit connected with Buddhism, or what is meditation, what is mindfulness, certain kind of more technical things. But I think what I'm saying is something that you already know. It's something that we all already know. So the next point is a little bit difficult. And this has to do with the quality, this knowing quality of awareness. And when we are really being aware of something, there is a sense of objectivity in that. For example, we may be experiencing some kind of emotions. But if you step back a little bit, and if you say to yourself, right now, I'm aware of my anger. Right now I feel disappointment, let's say. Or right now I'm feeling jealousy. Just by that very fact, there seems to be a little bit more distance between us and whatever is taking place in the mind. And that in itself invites a sense of objectivity. And this is a very important quality of awareness, because this allows us to explore things. It allows us to look at things objectively. And this is why, as I said, it leads to development of this discriminating wisdom, which is ability to differentiate things. It has this inherent quality of clear seeing. If awareness doesn't have that, if we didn't have awareness that has that, then there would be no way for us to practice anything. There would be no possibility of us to advance along the path. But luckily, it does have that quality. And as I said before, you already have it. And you already know it. So it creates distance and it creates objectivity. The next thing that is maybe a little bit more difficult to appreciate is that the awareness itself is without a judgment. Normally we are full of judgments, but the judgments are thoughts. They're judgments. They're not necessarily awareness. For example, you can say or think, for example, today I was a very good Zen student. Or today I was a very bad Zen student. This is a thought. This is not awareness. Awareness would be, I'm aware that I'm thinking that I was a very bad student today. I'm being harsh with myself. I'm aware of that this thought is arising in my mind. This is awareness. The thought itself, we confuse the two. The thought itself, this saying, I'm aware that I didn't meditate today and therefore I feel bad. I'm aware that thought. If you look at that, just the awareness itself, that there's no judgment there. It doesn't say, you're just noticing that you're having this thought. Today I was not a very good sense. Or maybe you feel really quite proud of yourself and say, today I meditated for 5 hours. This thought comes and it gives you kind of, I'm such a good Zen student. And then you can, that's different than saying, I'm aware that I'm having this thought. That awareness itself, there's no judgment there. This is something, but you can see this for yourselves. You can inquire. So awareness itself doesn't have judgment. We have a lot of judgments. The thoughts have a lot of judgments, but the awareness itself doesn't. So this is something worth also touching upon. And this is something that's wonderful about it, because the judgments that we indulge in all the time, this is something that really puts a lot of weight on everything, really, on us. Okay, so this is some sort of food for thought, something that you can just to get you started on your own exploration of what awareness is and how you can recognize it in your life to begin this practice of cultivation. And so now I want to move into the next part of my Dharma talk, and this is actually what Alan wanted me to talk about, and this is how to grow awareness in our life. So basically, what are some skillful ways in which we can cultivate awareness in a more systematic or practical way that we can really engage with it in our daily life. So I try to come up with some ideas. And the first thing that I'd like to mention is that really for it to be effective, we have to create the right kind of habits and the right kind of supports in our life. If we don't create those kind of habits, and if we don't create the right conditions, we have to be wise enough to understand that the only way we can do it is if we structure our days and our lives in a way which are conducive and supportive of this practice. If we are structuring our lives at home, at work, wherever, in a way that is not conducive to this practice, then it will be very difficult to do this. So this is the first thing that we have to recognize. And how to do that, I'll leave it up to you. Whatever good, healthy habits work for you, by all means, do that. And create the right supports. For example, what we are doing here today is one of these supports. This is a support for your practice of cultivating awareness. That's what we are doing. Listening to this Dharma talk, sitting together, even seeing here on the screen that there are other people who are perhaps interested in the same kind of thing, gives support to what you're trying to do at home. So there could be many things like that. You can create in your daily life reminders. And this is the next thing that I'd like to talk about. You simply create reminders to practice awareness. You can do it maybe every time, if you have an old-fashioned clock that rings on the hour. People don't have that anymore in the homes, but every time you hear the clock ringing, you can stop and just let everything stop for 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and you can think to yourself, right now it is 1 o'clock, I'm aware, whatever, I'm aware of my breathing, I'm aware that it is 1 o'clock, today I am, and so on. Whatever is happening, this is the awareness, and mindfulness has to do with recognizing whatever it is that is taking place here and now. This is basically a definition of what mindfulness is: to take stock, to recognize, to pay attention, to see what is taking place right now. So you can use that as a reminder. You can use whenever you open a fridge. You can put a note on the fridge and say, be mindful. And what do you mindful of? Well, right now I'm opening the fridge. I'm aware that I'm opening the fridge. Or you can be reminded of whether you're hungry or not hungry, or maybe I'm craving something sweet. This can serve, I'm talking about not what the content of your awareness should be. I'm talking about putting reminders to inject awareness of whatever is taking place. There are many things like that we can do. So we are talking about working with work with specific situations that take place throughout the day. Maybe when you are before bed, when you go brush your teeth, this can be a time that you're already doing. This is a habit that you're engaging in. This can be the time to practice awareness. In the way they used to do this for monks, in the monasteries, they would have them memorize gathas. And this is something I learned at the Plum Village in France, which is Thich Nhat Hanh's group. The way the monks work with this is there are many gathas, and they all have to do with a specific situation. So for example, when you're washing hands, there would be a gatha that you bring to mind when you're washing hands. It involves being aware of what is taking place, and also there would be perhaps bringing a sense of gratitude or appreciation or something like that. But the basic idea is when you are walking along the path, there would be a gatha for that. When you are bowing and you're entering the room, there would be gatha for that. So this work as a reminder to bring to mind that you're alive, that you're present, that something is taking place, and that this is a wonderful opportunity to practice. So you can do the same thing in your daily life. You can create moments, situations which are habitual, and you can inject awareness in those moments. And then another thing that I think is very skillful is we can work with emotions. Whenever we feel a certain conflicting emotion, this can serve as a reminder to practice awareness. Just that, if we can create a habit that when you feel a certain heaviness, a certain whatever it is, this can serve as a reminder. I think this is a wonderful way to bring awareness into our daily life and to grow it and to become habituated and to become more involved with whatever it is that is taking place. So for example, I have my students memorize Metta Sutta, and when the practice that they're supposed to be doing is whenever they notice aggression, any form of aggression rising up in their minds, they are meant to practice Metta Sutta. This is another way. Before you can do it, you have to be aware of what your mental state is. You have to become aware that you are experiencing aggression. And then you can react to it. In this case, they're trained to react to it by cultivating a loving kindness. So this is another, so the mental state itself, it can serve as a reminder to become aware. There is already, let's say you're being angry or irritated by something doesn't go our way. The moment you say to yourself, right now, I'm aware of my irritation. I'm irritated. I feel irritated by such and such. I don't know. Maybe the cat broke something. Maybe the cat broke your favorite Buddha statue. I don't know. The moment you say, right now I am aware of being irritated, there's already a little bit of a release, there's already a little bit of a peace, there's already a little bit of a distance, there's already a little bit of objectivity is coming into your mind stream. And then you can work with that. And then you can practice loving kindness or something. Right now, I'm bringing loving kindness into my life, or as an object of awareness. So this is another way that you can do it. You can use the mental states themselves as triggers, as reminders to bring more awareness into our lives. So this is, so far, I think this is mainly in the realm of mindfulness practice. And now we can sort of talk a little bit more, moving into the realm of meditation. Awareness doesn't necessarily have to have an object. For example, right now, what would be a good object of awareness? Well, right now, you can be aware I'm listening to a Dharma talk. I'm aware that I'm not just listening, but I'm also aware that I'm listening to Dharma talk. You can be aware of your body. You can be aware of anything. But awareness, you can also have a kind of awareness of awareness. This is something that's more peaceful, and this is something that you can cultivate more as a meditation practice on the cushion when there's nothing going on. You can just experience and cultivate a kind of pure awareness without it being necessarily attached to anything in particular. It is more like just experiencing awareness for itself, without it having to do anything in particular other than just be itself. So this is also a wonderful way of cultivating awareness, just awareness of awareness. And then you can do some interesting things. This is more now of the realm of meditation practice. You can also become aware that awareness is emptiness. And here we are beginning to cultivate wisdom. And I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I do want to say a couple of words. What is this idea? Awareness is emptiness. What is he trying to tell me? It's very simple. At the very basic level, you can think of it. Awareness itself doesn't need to have an owner of that awareness. There doesn't have to be a self-reference there. If you think about it, you will see that when you're aware of yourself, that self is merely an object of that awareness, in the same way that you are aware when a dog barks on the street. You hear a dog and the dog barks, and you hear a dog and you say, I'm listening, I'm aware of a dog barking. In the same way, the awareness itself, there's no owner to it. We think there is. But when we think there is, what we are doing is the awareness has gone out and grabbed a thought. It has latched onto this self. But if you really sit and you really examine it minutely, you will see that the awareness itself doesn't have a self-reference. And this is a beginning of recognition of what you could say is awareness itself is emptiness. This is just the beginning. How clearly and how deeply we can experience this is a matter of practice. And we can go further. We can experience awareness itself as joy. I mean, wouldn't it be wonderful? Every time you bring awareness into your life, which is something you know and you have, and it's so accessible and you can have it at your fingertips at all times. Wouldn't it wonderful if you do that, immediately you have some experience of some joyousness? We can do that. Can do that. You can experience awareness itself as fulfillment. Think about it like this. If awareness doesn't have any self-referential, self-reference, where is the beginning or the end of that awareness? Where does it start? Where does it end? You cannot find it. You will not be able to find it. So in a way, this awareness that you know, that is at your fingertips, is something that is boundless. Let me ask you this. Before anything for us human beings, before anything at all can exist, what do we need? We need awareness. If you don't have awareness, you have nothing. There is nothing. Whether this, whatever it's good or bad or whatever, you can't have anything. So it is so basic, it is so, you can say awareness is life from that perspective. It is boundless, it is limitless, it is the life itself. When you begin to sort of operate at those frequencies, you can begin to see a little bit how awareness itself can become very fulfilling, very nourishing, very life-affirming. There's no limit to this practice, how much you can develop awareness. So this, I'm just giving you some rough sort of guidelines. It's an overview. I'm not going into any great depth here. Just want to give you a bit of inspiration and maybe answer that question, why should I practice awareness? So next question that I wanted to ask myself would be a good thing to answer is, what can I do with it? Okay, so we talked about a little bit what it is. We talked about how we can develop it. What are some of the skills that we can do? How do we cultivate it? Now, what can we do with it? Well, the first thing that we can do is we can inquire. We can ask ourselves question. What does it feel like, this breath? I become aware of them, that I'm breathing in. So what is this breathing? So this is the most basic function. You can inquire things. Second thing that we can do, we can develop more peaceful states of mind, because it has inherent capacity to pacify. Breathing in, I'm aware that I'm breathing in. This is, I'm aware that I'm breathing in. We are connecting to the breath, but also our thought, this thought, I'm aware that I'm breathing in. It's a kind of inherently more peaceful thought than the kind of thoughts that we tend to have, running here, running there, judgments, and so on. Right? So, the more we cultivate awareness, the more skillful we become at pacifying the mind. So this is another, so we can inquire, we can pacify. I already talked about this, but I want to develop this idea further. Another thing we can do is we can develop appreciation of life. When you're walking in a park, if we are not aware, we might as well not be walking. There are flowers, there are dogs, there are the people, there are kids playing. To pay attention, to lose ourselves in the richness of that experience, to appreciate all those different things. To be aware of all those different things is to develop appreciation of. We cannot appreciate life if we don't notice anything. We could say that the opposite of awareness is ignorance. It is not noticing, it is not knowing, it is being disconnected. I already said that maybe it's a first prerequisite for human beings of life. So with it we can develop, deepen our appreciation of life. Another thing we can do is we can develop understanding. Because we can inquire, and because we can become peaceful and settled, and because we can create appreciation, we can also develop understanding. I spoke already about awareness of awareness, awareness as emptiness. All of those things give us insights into human nature, into our humanity, into why things are the way they are. So we develop understanding. So this is some of the things. I'm sure we could come up with a lot more things, but these are some of the things that we can do with it. So it helps us, we can answer certain questions. We can answer questions such as knowing what we are. These are deep questions of spiritual significance. Here we are moving past perhaps the boundary between mindfulness practice in which we are taking stock of what is taking place, and we are looking deeper into what is our relationship with the universe? What is the relationship between me and the universe? And it has very much to do with this perspective of duality and non-duality. So knowing what we are. And also knowing what we are not. Normally, we are so convinced of what we are. I am this person here, sitting here. And you are that person sitting there. And this is the universe, and it's a scary, big, scary place. We are convinced, but maybe we shouldn't be so convinced. So, knowing what we are and knowing what we are not. Another thing we can do, and this is now becoming maybe more basic, is just getting insight in how we see ourselves. This is purely at the psychological level. We don't need any deep spiritual practice, but do I see myself in a positive light? Do I see myself in a negative light? Am I practicing loving kindness toward myself, or am I always practicing, I'm being so harsh? Why am I being so harsh? Where did I learn that? But not just noticing that to start, just knowing how we see ourselves. Do I see myself as somebody who is capable, or do I see myself as somebody who is incapable of whatever? So just at the very basic level, just noticing how we see ourselves. But then also, and this is maybe more difficult, gaining insight in how others see us. Normally we have very little understanding about that. We think this person doesn't like me, or this person likes me, or I've done something here. So just really being aware of the dynamic, interpersonal dynamics, and seeing how others see it, how do they perceive us. So seeing how we see ourselves, how it's easy to see how you think what you think of somebody else, but this is also something we are not aware of. I don't like this person. Why? We are not even aware. We don't like them maybe, but why? So all of these things are very interesting ground for exploration. It's a lot of fun. It can be a lot of fun. Also something that I would say is very important for every human being. I think we all long not just to know who we are, but to kind of feel, to be authentic to ourselves. So I would propose awareness as a way of being authentic to who we are, meaning the courage to really be who we are out in the world. we are always projecting, and we are always pretending, and we are always trying to project some image, and we're always guarding against something, and there's always so much fear in how we relate. It's very difficult for human beings to be that which they long for the most, meaning their authentic selves, and just to have courage to be authentic with each other, and to be sincere, and to go for those kind of things that you want in your life. To really be the person that you want to be. To know who that person is, and then to become that person and have courage to be that person. So awareness is as a way to authenticity, which is what we really want. We don't want to live somebody else's life. We don't want to be somebody that other people want us to be. We should have the courage to be who we are. And so awareness can help us. It's a way to that authenticity, which is very important for our happiness. And I think when we can do that, we can be so much better as friends, as partners, as members of the community. When we are happy and we are strong and we know what is what. Again, remember I told you mindfulness develops wisdom, but to be able to differentiate, to see things clearly. So when we know what is what, we can offer more and we can be more genuine with each other. So this is also something that awareness can help us with. This is kind of, again, on the other side of the spectrum from ignorance, which is kind of where we disassociate. We disassociate with who we are. We disassociate from the world around us. We have no courage to embrace things, so we tend to ignore. We create well, it's really, isn't it something to do with fear? To disassociate means that the world is too scary, that we can't be our authentic selves. So we have to create a mask, or we have to create a world that is different than what is. So it really has to do with our response to the fear. Pain, also pain and fear. But I think we want to be authentic people. And I think we want to really look at things clearly. And this is the function of awareness. And so that brings another point then. I brought up ideas of fear and pain. So even though we know what awareness is, even though it's always at our fingertips, why are we not using it more? Why do I need to talk about it? Why do we need to have a practice? Why do we need to come up with these ways, skillful ways of reminding ourselves? I think it has a lot to do with authenticity and disassociating. Because it makes us vulnerable. If we don't disassociate anymore, if we don't try to protect ourselves anymore, if we don't run to some fantasy or to some way of thinking, or we create a certain constructs, mental constructs of how things are, if we strip all of that, it puts us in a very kind of vulnerable state. We are exposed. But isn't that the function of awareness? To expose things to us, to knowing? So it takes courage, is what I'm saying. Maybe the reason why we don't practice it more is because we really don't want to know. We don't want to be aware. We just want to pretend. But this kind of pretending, it leads to a lot of problems. Right now, what I see The world has a lot of issues that are kind of coming up to crescendo. They're just piling up one on top of the other. And each month brings some new kind of crisis. And the question is, how long can we pretend? For how long can we pretend? This is my question to you. It works for a little while, but how long? I think somewhere deep down we know it doesn't work in the long run. Sooner or later, there's a price to be paid for that. So courage. I think it takes courage to practice awareness, and this is the obstacle. What else it takes? It takes time. We have to give ourselves time. Breathing in. I know I am breathing in. I have to stop everything else. Whatever else is going on, I have to stop just to have that thought, just to pay attention to my breath. I have to stop everything else. This takes time. We need to have time. We need to dedicate time. We need to make room for time. Awareness is free, but it takes time. And finally, the difficulty is that this is not something that can be taught. None of these things can be taught. At best, it can be encouraged. But I cannot teach any of these things, nor can you teach anybody else. It is something that you already know. It is something that you already have. And you must have courage to embrace it. But it's not something that can be taught, but it can be encouraged. So this is where I would like to end for tonight. And this is my first Dharma talk. So next talk is continuation. We're going to talk about 4 immeasurables. And specifically the first one of the 4, I will explain why they're called 4 immeasurables. And it's talking about loving kindness, and in which sense it is continuation. Remember, I spoke about awareness itself. It's something that is boundless. In a way, we can say awareness itself is immeasurable. So we are continuing in a natural, organic way. We will talk about loving kindness in our next Dharma talk next Monday. Okay, so this is where I would like to end. We are running a little, it was a very long talk, almost 50 minutes. So we won't take any questions today. But at some point we will maybe reserve a whole session for questions and maybe even having discussions. I want to hear from you. I want to hear from all of you, all of these points. I want you to tell me why cultivating awareness is worthwhile for you. I want you to tell me how you're going about it. You can come up with all sorts of things that we could discuss and share. So we will reserve time for that. But right now, I will end here, and now we will recite the 4 great vows. Alan, thank you very much.